Now, a day before the ANC NEC meeting, the MKMVA Military Veterans Association released a statement saying to the effect that the fight against corruption in the ANC must investigate serious allegations of vote buying at the ANC's 54th National Conference. Now, the MKMVA NEC member, Niehuas, joins us now to talk about this. Carl, good evening, and thank you for your time tonight. Before the meeting, you also tweeted that the credibility of the current ANC NEC stands on the ledge, and it will be proven this weekend in how they deal with corruption. Are you satisfied with how the agenda of the ANC this weekend was focused on corruption and how they dealt with it?
Oh, good evening, Thabo. First of all, yes, MKMVA Military Veterans Association did say that corruption has to be dealt with on an even-handed way, and that every individual who is responsible for government and in government and for corruption has to be dealt with. So that is the position that we hold. We've also made it very clear that we believe that the issue of allegations of the buying of votes at the 54th National Conference needs to be dealt with, and that particular issue will be a litmus test for the seriousness with which the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, and of course every single member of the NEC, including also the national office bearers, are dealing with corruption. So that issue is what the NEC has to address. I must emphasize, Thabo, I cannot talk about what happened at the National Executive Committee meeting of the African National Congress, because that meeting is not yet concluded, and once it is concluded, then the NEC of the ANC, through the Office of the Secretary General of the African National Congress, will issue a press statement which will give us an indication of what the decisions are that have been taken at this very important National Executive Committee.
Let's talk about what we already know that is in the public domain. The Deputy Secretary General of the ANC has spoken to the media saying part of what was discussed at the NEC is to reaffirm the decision of the 54th conference of the ANC around the issues of, firstly, those who are accused publicly, it could be by the media, it could be by any other institution, of corruption, must voluntarily go and present themselves to the Integrity Commission and present evidence otherwise that, of course, would prove them innocent. And if that evidence does not make sense, then the Integrity Commission has a right to investigate further and send them to the DC. That's one aspect. The other aspect is those who are charged would then need to also go and appear in the Integrity Commission, but they would also need to step aside from positions of authority until the Integrity Commission decides what will happen with them when they've cleared themselves. And those who have already been charged and been found guilty, certainly stepping aside, going to the Integrity Commission, and they are going to then decide whether they leave the institution or they leave the party completely. That's what's in the public domain. Talk to us about that. That is what this particular NEC would need to offer.
Well, Thabo, of course, I cannot say more than what the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress said, because I'm not a spokesperson for the African National Congress. We have a spokesperson and we have a Secretary General. So let me just concentrate on exactly what had been shared with us and to us by the Deputy Secretary General. As far as MKMVA Military Veterans Association is concerned, it is critically important that every person, every member of the African National Congress has to be dealt with in an even-handed way and in the same fashion. Whether you're an ordinary member of the ANC, whether you're just a member of the National Executive and not part of the office bearers, or in fact, if you are even the president of the African National Congress, everyone has to be dealt with on an equal basis, understanding that it is individuals who commit fraud and who commit these crimes of corruption, not the organization.
So are you saying that every individual's lobbying and funding of their campaigns should be investigated, or are you only singling out that of President Cyril Ramaphosa?
Now, I'm not singling anyone out, except I'm talking about what is currently in the public domain and which is contained in very serious allegations. And those serious allegations are about what happened at the 54th National Conference of the African National Congress, where there are persistent allegations that huge amounts of money have been used in order to influence the outcome of that leadership election contest. So that has to be investigated because there are serious allegations.
So President Cyril Ramaphosa has agreed to subject himself to the internal processes of the Integrity Commission. Do you welcome that?
Let me just finish my sentence first. The Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association insisted that those issues have to be investigated and that the bank accounts related to that particular set of allegations needs to be opened. So let me now answer your question about President Cyril Ramaphosa apparently, because I've not heard him saying it yet, but apparently having indicated that he will subject himself to the Integrity Commission and meet with the Integrity Commission. Now, obviously, that is a positive development because, as I've indicated to you, no individual member of the African National Congress can or should consider him or herself to be above the structures of the ANC and above the resolutions of the ANC. And the Integrity Commission had been established as a resolution of the African National Congress at our 53rd National Conference in Mangaung. But, and this is a very important issue, the matter of how the Integrity Commission deals with that engagement with President Cyril Ramaphosa will determine whether that engagement has got credibility and whether a full investigation, because that is what Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association have emphasized, had taken place. And of course, as part of such an investigation, one will not be able to avoid the opening of the particular bank accounts which relate to the allegations of vote buying. So the sealing of that set of bank accounts has to be set aside, and the Integrity Commission will have to deal with this issue in depth, including those bank accounts, because they will provide the necessary information about what exactly happened and will deal with the allegations that are currently in the public domain.
Right, let's talk about that credibility crisis then, Carl. It's you as well last week in your statement as the MKMVA who said certain comrades should not be singled out for factional purposes. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa is not the only member of the ANC that was campaigning for leadership, and every campaign in the ANC historically needs resources. Even the campaign that you were on the NDZ side, needed resources. Should those documents also be made public and available in terms of who funded those campaigns and how much money was raised?
Thabo, I think we should go back to the decisions that had been taken by the last 4 national conferences of the African National Congress in the form of resolutions which stated clearly that money should not be used in order to influence the outcome of any elections within the African National Congress. So yes, the use of money in elections is totally unacceptable and it is totally alien to the culture of the African National Congress. But of course, what we must be very careful about is to try and relativize when there's a set of allegations on the table to say, oh, but it happened before. Therefore, this set of allegations are not as serious as we should think about them because they are relativizing by what happened before. Obviously, if any of that kind happened before, that is wrong and it should be condemned. But 2 wrongs do not make a right. And what we are faced with in the public domain today, and which is, as I've said, the essential critical litmus test for the credibility on how we deal with corruption as the African National Congress, are these very serious allegations about the issue of vote buying at the Nasrec conference. You know that those allegations contain allegations that close to R1 billion or possibly even more had been involved. Now, surely if you go to the resolutions of our national conferences, which states very clearly that there should not be any use of money in order to influence the outcome of elections in the African National Congress, and that is also very clearly and directly outruled by our own constitution in the African National Congress, then we have a very serious problem. And we have a very serious problem when those who have been involved in the elections for the 54th National Conference, and specifically then also President Ramaphosa, had already made some statements that resources had been used for the purpose of funding those campaigns. Now we need to determine whether those resources, as they had been used, had in fact been used in order to buy votes and thus to influence the outcome of that election. If that had happened, it is an unforgivable crime in the minds of the African National Congress, and in fact, it will be a contradiction of everything the ANC stands for, and it will contradict the whole history of the African National Congress, and it will be a betrayal of all the presidents and leaders and comrades in the African National Congress who had dedicated their lives to the liberation struggle and to making the ANC the vanguard liberation movement in South Africa. So I cannot help but to continue to emphasize to you how critical this matter is, how important it is that it has to be addressed and it has to be opened right to the bone. And there must be clear answers, there must be a clear outcome, and it must be cleared off the table, but not in a cover-up process, but in a deliberate and clear process of revealing exactly what happened at the 54th National Conference.
Niehuas, thank you very much. Unfortunately, I am out of time, so we're going to have to leave it there for today, but I do appreciate your time.